And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the Ridge Florist Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If there's thoughts, ideas, or suggestions you have, people you'd like us to interview, please put them in the comments below, and we'll get to them for you. That's our job to respond to our listeners. Glad to have Bob Rommel with us today to talk about America's First Policy Institute and some of the things that are going on with insurance. Bob, good to have you with us, my friend.
Barry, thanks for having me. And, as a former elected official, a lot of times once you leave office, nobody wants to talk to you. But I appreciate you reaching out and want to find out what's going on.
But you have a really great history. I hear you started out as a car salesman. Is that right?
It's true. I mean, I grew up in a small blue-collar town in New Jersey, and I would say we were poor, but my parents always provided a roof. They cooked breakfast for us and made lunch and went to school, and we had dinner every night together. So, I mean, it was kind of like the normal family growing up in, the late 60s and mid 70s and 80s. But it was good. But yeah, uh, it looked like I was going to be either a cop or an auto mechanic, and both good professions. But somehow I started selling cars, and in a pretty fast time period, I became finance manager, then the general manager, and life was good. And after a few years, I thought I would buy my own dealership, but I couldn't get the financing. And I made a turn and went into the mortgage business. Was pretty good, had some pretty good success in there. And no, I did not cause the mortgage collapse in 2008. Even though that was a mail piece put out on me one time. We actually concentrated on first-time home buyers and FHA and VA loans, so it was pretty good to help people, get into their first home. And sold that company. Some crazy reason got into restaurants and had a few of them, and then even a crazier reason in 2015, somebody said, "Hey, you should run for office," and I thought they were crazy, and well, crazy happened. I got elected in 2016 to the Florida House.
Is there anything special that in your time there in the Florida House that you're happy with? Something you shepherded through the legislature and got passed?
You know, Barry, first of all, when I first ran, I had some ideas as a business owner, and Ronald Reagan, Milton Friedman, Barry Goldwater, fiscal, libertarian, conservative. There's things that I wanted to do, and some of it was business related. And I know you had mentioned earlier about insurance, and insurance premiums were one of the things that I actually wanted to shepherd. But oddly enough, one of the first bills that I ran was really difficult, and it was restoring free speech on college campus, believe it or not.
Wow. How
Yeah.
did were you successful in getting that taken care of?
Well, this was right after President Trump got elected, because we both got elected at the same time in 2016. And some conservative college kids came to me and saying that they were being restricted where they could speak, when they could speak, how they could speak, and if they had anything conservative, if they set up a tent, or a table with the flyers, they would put like behind the garbage cans and stuff. So, I ran a bill that basically restored free speech anywhere on the college campus in the public grounds. We don't want students disturbing classroom and interrupting. And I thought it would be pretty easy because I still recall the First Amendment and Constitution is the right to free speech. But it was one of the most difficult bills ever. Universities stood against it. Different student groups stood against it. And believe it or not, it passed in the Florida House, party line only. I guess Democrats don't believe in free speech. And in the Senate, we couldn't even get a hearing. So I was kind of frustrated, and I was actually very frustrated, and I wanted to know, like, what could we do? We passed it in the House. The Senate wouldn't hear it. People were cheering that the bill was dead, and then one day the Speaker of the House comes to me and goes, "Bob, get ready to present your bill again." And I said, "Well, we already passed it." And he said, "Well, get ready to present it again, because now the Senate just sent over the higher education budget, the entire budget for our state universities and colleges." He said, "Well, we're going to send it back, but we're going to send it back with the free speech bill in it." And That was one of the first things I learned in politics. There's always a negotiation, and there's clever negotiation. And thanks to Speaker Oliva and Corcoran, we were able to put the free speech bill in the higher ed budget. And the Senate had one choice: either approve the bill as is or defund all the colleges. And free speech won, and the colleges got funded.
Well, nicely done. Nicely done. And you've gone from that now to being the is it the CEO of America First Policy Institute?
I'm actually the state director of Florida,
Okay.
and America's First Policy Institute is a uh, conservative think tank where one of the things that we're really concentrating here in America is affordability, whether it's affordability of homes, family life. Americans are truly struggling, and it's a lot of it's happened over the last few years. Since COVID. Obviously, COVID was an awful time in America, but since then, prices have exploded, and even though with President Trump here, it's hard to, once things are at a certain level, it's hard to bring them down. They are stabilizing, but everything from insurance to medicine to healthcare to the price of homes exploded under President Biden there. When you have inflation at 9% a year for a couple of years, when traditionally the inflation's at 2%, it takes a lot of it takes a lot to get it back, but it hurts Americans. And the average working family pretty much is working paycheck to paycheck. And at America First Policy Institute, we're working on policies to you know, help Americans, have a better life. Some of the things that we're working on right now is property tax reform. We hear the governor talking about it. Energy reform to make sure we have affordable energy forever. And it's pretty exciting, to do these things as a former legislator, to put my business hat on, my common sense hat on, and then my former legislator hat on, because you can have these great ideas, but if it doesn't get passed, nothing happens. So pretty exciting time to be an American right now.
One of the big things is insurance, and I know it both automobile and home. It's killing a lot of Floridians. Is that because of the past that we've had with people filing lawsuits anytime somebody slips on a banana peel?
Well, if you drive anywhere in Florida, or you turn the TV on in any one of the large metropolitan areas, and even probably the smaller areas, every commercial is about, not every, lots of commercials have different law firms talking about how you can get paid. And, when you are truly hurt, or you have some damage, and there's somebody that caused the harm, you definitely should have access to the courts, whether it's an insurance company paying or the person that harmed you paying. But insurance isn't for people to get paid, it's for people to get whole. And in Florida, for so many years, we had this thing that was called one-way attorney fees. And what it was is attorneys, some attorneys, they would file thousands and thousands of lawsuits. In Florida, you can file a lawsuit for, I think it's about $275. Um, and they would, challenge usually insurance companies that, hey, my client was harmed and you have to pay. And let's just say maybe somebody truly would. Maybe somebody did slip, on a banana peel, or there was a storm that came by and there was some damage. And let's say the insurance company made them some offer. Let's just say they offered them $10,000 for falling down or the roof leaking. Well, in Florida, with one-way attorney fees, is what would happen is, if you went to court and the court said, you know what, yes, there was damage, but nope, it was not $10,000. Have to be $10,012. So the insurance company would have to pay the $10,012, and then they'd have to pay the plaintiff's attorney fees. And many times those attorney fees could be 10, 20, 30, 100 times the amount of the settlement. There was cases for property insurance when there would be a $5,000 settlement and $600,000 in attorney fees. Um, and we were the only state that had one-way attorney fees. No other state in the nation had this. So me, as a business person and as a common sense person, I said, okay, maybe we had bad insurance companies. We have to remember, going back to Hurricane Andrew, every insurance company left the state of Florida, pretty much. vacated the state of Florida. Citizens Insurance, which was a state-backed, basically public insurance company that would insure homeowners. But then what that does, it puts Florida's credit rating on risk. So people didn't want to come here. It wasn't for the storms. Andrew started it, but then when we came up with one-way attorney fees, they're saying, well, like, I'm not going to come here. I'm going to get sued every other day, whether I'm at fault or not. Um, and over my tenure as a legislator, we worked on things. There was something called assignment of benefits, and it sounds interesting, but what would happen is after a storm, somebody would knock on your door, and many a time these contractors were from other states, and they would say, hey, sign this and I'll take care of everything. So what the homeowner didn't know, they were actually assigning their rights of their insurance policy over to this contractor. And then that contractor sometimes would work with an attorney, and the immediate thing they would do would sue the insurance company. And then what would happen is, well, no work would be done on the house during the lawsuit, and it would just drive up costs. We eliminated that about 4 or 5 years ago. That helped. But really what helped was in 2022 when we eliminated the one-way attorney fees. Since then, we've seen over the last year and a half, we've seen 15 new companies come into the state of Florida. Rates have stabilized, and about half of the insurance companies have actually requested rate reductions. Small, but we're heading in the right direction. And we will see. Last year, the legislators, some people filed some bills to undo some of those litigation reforms, and unfortunately, what that causes uncertainty in the capital markets, and but luckily those bills failed. So I think you're going to continue to see more competition, and in reality, competition is what will drive down rates. I suggest everybody get really good agents, look at their policies, understand what they're insuring, look at deductibles. But there's a worldwide crisis in insurance. There's been these giant tragedies, whether it's California or even European nations, and huge, 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 you know, terrible like claims have been paid. Insurance companies are paying them, and their insurance companies are there to make money. So, and they're also, they know how to mitigate risk. So, I would say, people need good agents. They have to really shop around and maybe raise deductibles. But if you look at the state of California now, basically the state of California has no new companies coming there because of their bad policies, and never mind bad state not maintaining their lands and things like that. Insurance companies know how to mitigate risk for storms and damage, but the uncertainty of frivolous lawsuits, it's pretty tough to defend.
Well, there's a process that I've just become aware of that people would actually buy your lawsuit from you, and then even if you were willing to settle for what the insurance company wanted to pay, they say no, we can get more out of them, and they continue your suit even though you're not on board with it. Is that still in effect in the state of Florida?
As far as I know, when we got rid of assignment of benefits, that was no longer in effect. I mean, that
Hmm.
was actually literally the homeowner would sign their benefits to somebody they met 5 minutes before. And, listen, in times of tragedy, people want to get whole. Your home's leaking, the roof is bad, the air conditioner's not working, you're desperate, and some nice person says they're going to take care of everything. You trust them. And listen, at one time in America, you could trust the person who came to help you. And now, unfortunately, whether it's scam artists or whatnot, it seems like everybody's trying to get rich on the back of somebody else. You have to be cautious. But that particular thing, as far as I know, has stopped. But again, it's only been a year and a half since it's out there, and insurance companies have to have certainty that policies will continue, public policy will continue, because this next session that's coming up, somebody could change some of the things that we did, and some of the things that actually have helped give confidence to investors to open up 15 new insurance companies. But in anything in life, competition is the only thing that will drive down prices. And it's awful that things are expensive, and when people they get frustrated. They want government to do something. Well, government can't control insurance prices. Even look at healthcare after the Affordable Care Act was passed. Insurance costs and healthcare costs have outrisen inflation every single year. The average family, if they're buying their health insurance for families, about $25,000 a year, which is insane when you think about it. Um, but government, unless you want government to control everything, we can control the insurance prices, the cost of the roof, and the cost of lawyers, which obviously we don't want to do that because we believe in free market principles. But there was a lot of damage done, and I know people are frustrated, and it's, we're heading in the right direction. We probably need a little bit more oversight and some accountability. People need to understand what they're buying, so to make sure they're buying the right coverage and not buying coverage that they don't need. So it's unfortunately, there's no perfect solution, but I can tell you Florida's heading in the right direction because I think we're the only state that's actually seeing either a stabilization or a drop in rates. But again, it's 5% drop in rate is better than when it was going up 25 or 35% per year.
And Bob, are non-renewals, is that still a problem here in Florida? I know people have gotten letters saying, "Oh, by the way, we're leaving the state in 6 weeks, so you better find somebody new." And all of a sudden, they're spending long nights on the phone trying to get somebody to pick up their policy.
Non-renewals, are definitely a problem still. But again, you can't force somebody to do business if somebody doesn't wants to leave the state because they don't feel the risk of making money or not making money is there. But I would say it's less of a problem today than it was. Unfortunately, the people that are getting a lot of the non-renewals are the older homes with the older roofs because which is to me insane what the price of a roof costs. You could have a 2,000 square foot home, and it used to cost $6,000 or $7,000 to replace the shingle roof, and now it's $35,000 or $40,000. And unfortunately, those are the ones that you see the most cancellation. Or if you're in a high risk to flood area, you also have a risk there. And there's again, we can't force a company to provide coverage.
Bob, the legislature is coming back into session. During the last session, you were able to kind of uh, beat back some of the things that were going to be, some of the successes you had that were going to be undone. Do you think those are going to come back again? Is that something that folks need to check with their legislators about?
You never know. Sometimes there's just some politics going back to maybe look for something else. What I would like to see, I'd like to see some more accountability with some of these smaller insurance companies, where they have a managing partner where funds are, diverted at times. I'd also like to see some more transparency, so maybe how much your agent's getting a commission. Maybe your agent, and listen, we have a lot of good agents, so I don't want any of them to get mad at me, but there should be some transparency in agent commissions. If you have a financial planner, you know what the commission is on him. And when you're buying an insurance policy, if an agent's steering you with somebody that gives them a really high commission as opposed to a lower commission, which adds to your cost, you should know that. Um, so hopefully they'll do a little bit more accountability there, so consumers will actually know, and they'll also have confidence that the insurance company will be there when there is a claim. That they're not gonna, if it's one storm, they're not gonna be out of business. We want that stability, so people can have confidence, but we want the insurance companies to have confidence too that every other year the legislators aren't going to change the rules. And because in business you need to have confidence so you can have a continuous business plan. You can't keep changing because the wind changes direction.
We're talking with Bob Rommel, who heads up the Florida chapter of the American First Policy Institute. And Bob, is this something that's on the AFPI radar? This tort reform, is that one of the number of things you guys are tracking?
In Florida, every state has a little bit different things, but in Florida, our number one thing is property tax reform. In our top five is insurance reform to make sure that we can get to that accountability and transparency, so customers will have more options and more confidence. We're also working on energy policy in Florida. I mean, if you looked at Florida, the most of the growth in output of electricity, and I say energy, I'm talking mostly electricity, has been in the growth of solar, which is good, but it really, the demand for new energy, especially with AI and electric cars and everything else, solar is not going to, power your electric car, and solar is not going to power if we want to attract a data center, to come to Florida. We need to expand natural gas plants. We need to have nuclear. We need to do all those things. We, I hate to say it, but I happen to be in New Jersey right now, and I'm helping my friends up here in New Jersey, where they kind of went, they left nuclear, they left coal, they left natural gas, and they have these windmills out in the ocean that some people say are killing the wells. And their electric rate per kilowatt is 300% more than in Florida, and there's no plan to improve it.
Hokey
My sister
smokes.
up here last month, her electric bill was $900, and she just has, it's not a small house, but it's not the McMansion, $900 for an electric bill.
Wow.
And you know, so the government up here, because it's election time, they're giving everybody $100 back on their electric bill for the next few months, I guess, to make them feel good when they
Well,
go to
that's
the
very
polls. And
kind. That's very
yeah,
kind.
they're,
100 bucks
they're
back on your $900 bill. That's very kind. But now, do we classify the AFPI as a think tank, or do they do you suss out problems, or do you not also help with solutions to some of these things that you've outlined?
I, I would say we are a think tank, but we like to say we're a do tank. We see problems. We talk to our constituents around the state or the country. We listen to our political leaders on both sides, and we try to come up with solutions to educate both the people of Florida and also our legislators. And we don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, and Independent. If we think it's a good solution to make America more affordable, make America healthier, to make it more secure, we're going to push that, those ideas, educate people, and hopefully then legislators will get it passed, and we'll live happily ever after. But no, we say we are a do tank. We don't just look at the problems. We help come up with the solutions.
And so then, do you then, after you have a great team? I was looking online. You have a really great team of people. Do you bring in experts and then come up with solutions, and then take them to effective legislators and say, look, can we get these things put into Florida law?
We we talk to legislators, and again, we talk to both sides of the aisles. We're a nonpartisan think tank. I would say most of our policies are probably more conservative, more libertarian. We don't believe in big government. We see what big government does. It's usually makes it more complicated, more expensive, less efficient. As a lifelong, like I call myself a mutt of entrepreneurs, I've done a bunch of little things, but each time it was about efficiency. Oh, and obviously it was about making money. But efficiency works, and then with government, I forget when we were talking about somebody yesterday, and they just said, well, if government could just hire more people and do more things and do this, and I said, listen, having money is not the problem. It's usually the efficiencies, and government gets in the way. See, kind of even in education, when we're studying property tax here in Florida, and I'm looking at school spending by school. We have some schools that spend $14,000 a year per kid, and some schools that spend $28,000 a year per kid. And not in all cases, but in many cases, the one spending $14,000 per kid gets a better result than the one spending $28,000 a kid. And you scratch your head. I go, how could that be? And well, it's because unfortunately, a lot of the bureaucracy in government. And we have to make it more efficient. We have to give people more options, and we really need whether it's state government, federal government, or local government, more accountable how they spend people's dollars.
I noticed that the AFPI is very active in social media: Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Do you have like normal people that weigh in and become part of the discussion, and maybe give you some, I guess, boots on the ground, for lack of a better term?
I, I would say we're always listening to people, boots on the ground. And I'm, as a former politician, one thing we do like to talk and we like to listen. On the social media side, that's not me. I'm not a comms person, and I, whether it's good or bad, I probably post the least. I put pictures of my dog out there for family members, pretty much, and
So,
but
Bob, let me
but
ask
we
you.
do. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry
If
about
there's
that.
if there's if there's things that people can do to help, either with this tort reform, or either the AFPI, the America First Policy Institute, what would be your suggestion for normal citizens to help push this forward?
I would say if they like, they can contact me, through our website, but contact their legislators. Believe it or not, legislators listen, and and sometimes, like insurance, there is no silver bullet to fix anything because, again, unless you want government to totally take over everything, from the cost of the insurance, the cost to fix the roof, the cost of the attorney, it doesn't work. And then, of course, if government's all in charge, we'd be like one of those Eastern European nations where they control healthcare, and you go there, when you're bleeding, but if you have an ache and pain, make an appointment, come see them in 3 years. I would say the solutions. Listen, Florida's probably the best state in the nation in many categories. Um, and insurance, it's definitely on the rebound, but it was, it was a good 25 years of decline when nobody wanted to come to the state. So it's going to take a little bit more time. And unfortunately, inflation is still an issue on the contracting side, and until inflation on that stuff gets a little more stabilized, it's there's still going to be some expenses there, but people with a good agent looking at the deductible, making sure their home is secure and up to code, definitely can get some better rates.
Bob Rommel, who former state legislator here in the Sunshine State, now heads up the Florida chapter of America First Policy Institute. Bob, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your time here, Bob. And as always, we'll get your numbers and get your website out so people can see it.
All right, thanks for chatting, and hope everybody has a blessed day.
Have yourself a good time up there in the Garden State. All right. Uh,
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. As always, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, people who'd like us to interview, just put them in the comments below. And remember, like and subscribe. Doesn't cost a dime to subscribe, and it helps us with the algorithm. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, this is Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.